SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Mid-Delta Auction Company is holding a spring equipment auction Thursday, March the 20th from their location across from Cannon Motors in Greenwood. Visit mdauction.com for more information. That's mdauction.com. We'll see you there.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be.
Hello, friends. Good morning to you. And welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross. SuperTalk Mississippi. Lance on the other side of the glass. We are thrilled, I tell you, to be spending the morning with you as you get your day started. If you're a hairspray guy or girl, maybe a little extra this morning. If you're a Dapper Dan man, may want to go a little heavier.
I'm a Dapper Dan man.
Because, brother, the wind is blowing. It is blowing early this morning, and it's going to blow all day long in the Magnolia State. In studio in Jackson today. Nice to be with you, my friend. Just like right there.
I know. I have a running buddy today. That is so odd. I love it, man.
Well, now, if you don't get any ideas.
Yeah, you're going to be here every day from
No. I mean, if you're like trying to be literal in terms of a running buddy, you, my friend, are a runner. I am not. So if you think I'm going to go out and run, forget about it.
Yeah,
but we can hang out.
Around here, most people know that when they sneak in and I'm the only one here, they usually let me know because I'll be sprinting around this place, running everywhere. Perez is like, man, you're going to kill me, man. So, yeah, it's nice to have somebody in here, though.
You need the flashing lights and the flags like they've got at the big box store where they're, going to get something off the top aisle.
Put
or
the little
lights
top
rack.
Every corner, where there's a little flashing light if I'm coming around the corner. But, I mean, wearing boots, that usually, I'm stomping around.
Yeah, you're making some noise. 78 and windy today in the Delta, especially in Greenville. Biloxi, 75. You got some sunshine, but also some wind. Our good friends in Utica, Mississippi, checking in at 76 and a wind advisory in effect. Going to be cooler across the state tomorrow. Maybe the last dash of cool, fittingly or not so fittingly, I don't know, on the first day of spring. Tomorrow, March 20th, first day of spring. There's an equinox term that goes in there. It's not you got the autumnal equinox, which signifies the first day of fall. What's the first day of spring called? You know this.
I have no idea.
Vernal equinox?
Yeah, well, I don't want to say it because I'm going to butcher it.
You're like, yeah, that's it.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
that's right, the vernal equinox.
How about that?
Yeah, you nailed it.
I had to talk myself there, but it's like I got there. So, yeah.
Thursday, March 20th, 2025, 5:01 a.m. That's the start of spring, officially the vernal equinox, a.k.a. spring equinox. But if you're smart, you use the vernal word.
Vernal
like
equinox.
Figure out where vernal comes from.
Well, it's going to warm up, and everything's popping, blooming. And yesterday, so here, you and I have talked about this before. You have this wave across the state of Mississippi. Starts in the south, works its way north in terms of things blooming. But there is a secondary wave, or maybe an initial wave, that's not so much about blooming, it's about pollen. North Mississippi, as of 9:30 yesterday morning, had not yet gotten the yellow wave. It's coming. We all know it's coming, and the allergy issues that go along with it. However, 2 hours and 10 minutes to the south of Oxford, Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, has received the beginning of the yellow wave. Yesterday afternoon, Sports Talk was at the ballpark. I had to get out a rag last night when I got to the hotel and wipe my computer down. I mean, it was like pollen everywhere.
It's like when you eat one of the donuts. I love the powdered donuts, my favorite, but it reminds me every time pollen season comes around. It's basically like having a yellow powdered donut. You can't avoid it. It's everywhere. Don't wear anything dark. And I mean, and
it's not you take a bite and it just kind of sprinkles into your lap. It's like somebody's just shaking one above your head.
Like a salt shaker on top of you. Yeah.
That's right. So that is coming. Prepare accordingly. If you have allergy issues and you have not yet started that daily allergy medication, get on it. Now's the time. Preventative, not reactive. Oh, me. The birthday list was kind of disappointing today.
Yeah, there's some bad guys in there.
Who you got?
Well, we had the first of all, you had Chief Justice Earl Warren, bad guy. Harvey Weinstein, bad guy.
Worst guy.
Yeah, worst guy. And then Casey Anthony, the child killer. They're all on the same. Yeah, the brutal. No, you did round it out, though, with Bruce Willis. I mean, you can't go wrong with Bruce.
Yippee-ki-yay!
I love that. That's one of the most iconic lines of all time. What was it, Reichman? Or what's his name? I don't know.
You got me.
Alan Reichman or something like that.
Yeah.
Richmond Reichman. But, yeah, he was a great actor. But you got Bruce Willis. And a lot of his newer stuff, man. He doesn't say a whole lot in it, but he still acts. I mean, I've watched a few of his newer flicks, and they're pretty good. All action. And Glenn Close is 78 today. And the beauty, Ursula Andress, Dr. No, and Casino Royale, 89.
What was it? On this day in history, Sean Connery began filming Goldfinger.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a huge Bond fan. I've seen them all.
Goldfinger was the original, right?
Yeah, yes.
Or is that not right?
Well, Goldfinger is where he goes to the island, and you have Tattoo. Mm-hmm. No, Goldfinger's the one where it's at the horse track. I'm thinking of the man with the golden gun. But, yeah, Goldfinger's the German guy in the racetrack in Kentucky. I love all of them. I get them mixed up sometimes, but big Bond fan, especially the the Connery ones, the Sean Connery ones. They're my favorite.
He was a dude.
Yeah.
He was absolutely a dude.
When you pull off a terry cloth onesie around the pool and you're still a man, yeah, you got it going on, buddy.
C-Spire text line 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. Look out, Richard. You're going to jinx spring. I remember back in the early 90s, we had a dusting of snow in the second week of April. That's Tim in Tupelo. Really?
Yeah, Dr. No was the first.
Dr. No was the first of the James Bond films. How many are there?
Ooh.
Dozen?
Oh, way more than that. Let's see.
Really?
As far as James Bond?
Yeah, I guess it is more like 20 or so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let me tell you what's coming up on the show this morning. We are stacked and loaded.
25.
We will hear from both sides of the Capitol this morning. 25 total.
Yeah, total. Yeah, 25 total.
So yesterday in the Capitol, we'll get into more of this. Pretty significant day. It was a deadline day, the 18th of March. We had told you that all along. Any money-related bills original action had to be off the floor. And so with a deadline, or up against a deadline, the Senate passed an amended version of the tax bill. And it was not by any stretch of the imagination a slam dunk. I in person watched my first Senate debate yesterday, and it was fascinating. There's a lot of procedural stuff.
I was going to say a lot of procedure.
Parliamentary, a fair level of respect. There were no gloves off. A level of passion, depending on which side of the issue that you were on. And ultimately a bill that will now be sent to the House that does include the elimination of the state income tax. But it's the elimination of the state income tax with triggers. There's some protection. The Senate calls this a responsible conservative bill. And we're going to get into the details of that. Josh Harkins, the principal author of that bill on the Senate side of things, will join us. But not just Josh Harkins. He's going to bring Daniel Sparks with him. And Daniel Sparks really focused in on the Tier 5 retirement piece of this bill. And that's a significant part of the Senate bill. And I'm glad that Senator Sparks is coming along as well, because he does a good job explaining what this is. There is a lot of, let's go back to campaign season, misinformation and disinformation about PERS and the changes to PERS within the Senate bill. We will explain what's going on with that. That's coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. That's 7:20. And then we will bounce to the opposite side of the Capitol, and we will talk with the Speaker of the House, Jason White, and get his reaction to the bill that the Senate put out yesterday, find out about the amended House bill, some of the changes that are in that. And we're going to ask everybody, is there hope for an actual bill that gets passed by both sides, that makes it to the governor's desk, that the governor signs? Because all of those things still have to happen. Jeff in Grenada says, by procedure, cross means BS. Your words, not mine, Jeff. We're back with you after this, some news headlines.
From the Venable Glass.
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you. What is today? Wednesday? Middle of the week. Wednesday morning, 19th of March. Tomorrow, the first day of spring. Thanks for joining us. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. The C Spire text line is open to you. The number, 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. Give your business the edge with gigabit fiber internet from C Spire Business. Help your business run its best with blazing fast internet speeds from C Spire. Check them out online at cspire.com/business. C Spire, inspired by you. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I am Richard Cross. We got some headlines to look at. Is there anything that you have seen in the last, let's say, week, that was more wholesome, fulfilling, and just downright cool and special than the pod of dolphins that were swimming around, and it felt like they were the official welcoming party for the astronauts who returned home in the SpaceX capsule and splashed down in the good old Gulf of America yesterday? I mean, how great was that? You watched that video, didn't you?
Yeah. It's like the dolphins were like, welcome home. You know,
it's exactly what it felt like.
We knew you were up there. We've been waiting. Yeah.
My wife doesn't do a lot on Twitter. And I don't even. I guess you can open a tweet that somebody sends you, even if you don't have X or whatever.
I think they're nice about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I sent her the link. She's a big dolphin fan. Loves. You ever swam with a dolphin before?
No, I've not.
I would have thought in your time in Mexico you did that.
No, there's a great King of the Hill episode. I lived vicariously through it at La Grunta. But no, I have not. It looks like it would be a lot of fun.
Did Hank Hill swim with dolphins?
He did. He got a present from Luann, his niece, and he swam with the dolphin, and the dolphin made a pass at him. Yeah, so it's a great episode.
Get this dolphin away from me.
This dolphin. Oh, my God. But, yeah, it's a good episode. No, Bobby, it's something I've always wanted to do.
Bobby, I never want to swim with dolphins again.
Oh, no, it ruined him. Yeah, it ruined him. They tried to bribe him with all kind of La Grunta gear. and stuff, but that didn't work.
Oh, me. If you ever have the chance to swim with dolphins, please do it. It is such a cool experience. Several years ago, I got to call a basketball tournament in the Bahamas. The Battle for Atlantis that ESPN does. This was, 2018 maybe. So it's been a while. But we were there for almost a week. It was Thanksgiving week, so my whole family was there. And they've got like a dolphin sanctuary area.
Yeah.
And that was kind of part of the coverage that we did. It was, man, you want to talk about power? Because they give you like a little kickboard that you hold out in front of you. Is that what you call it?
Yeah,
little paddleboard.
Something like
you
that.
kind of hold it out in front, like if you're playing in the water of the ocean, you kick with your feet. And so you kind of put that out in front of you, and you put your feet together, like one on top of the other, so that you kind of create this flat deal. And they have trained those dolphins to come up behind you, and they push your feet as if they are the motor behind a boat. And, brother, you want to talk about propulsion? It's incredible.
Yeah, watching them, that's just amazing, though. My first thought would have been like, oh, my God, there's sharks everywhere. Because I've swam out in the Gulf before and made that mistake where you left the chum line out, en route to where you were fishing. And you go, hey, let's take a swim. And you jump out, and there's sharks everywhere. And everybody's like, yeah, probably ought to get out of the water. Those aren't dolphins. Yeah.
Not the best plan.
No.
Ceasefire negotiations underway between Russia and Ukraine, courtesy of the red, white, and blue. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed during a lengthy call, about 2 hours yesterday, over 2 hours, to an immediate pause, a partial ceasefire. Strikes against energy infrastructure in the Ukraine going to stop for 30 days. But old Vlad said, nah, we're not going to shut down everything. He did not go with the full-on 30-day pause in fighting that the U.S. administration is pressing for. White House described this as a first step in a movement to peace that it hopes will include a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea and eventually a full and lasting end to the fighting, but no indication that Putin has backed away from his conditions for a prospective peace deal. And Kyiv is very much against the conditions. After the call, air raid sirens went off in Kyiv and there were explosions in the city. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's like there's just like, how do you ever end? All right, let's finish up this peace call. All right, we're good. No more energy infrastructure. Boom. They didn't say no more cafes. Fire the bombs. It's almost what it feels like. So Tuesday's call ended with Putin and Trump agreeing on an immediate pause, but the Kremlin wants more. Ukraine wants more.
Who wins in this? In the end, if you're Russia, you're wanting Russian-occupied Crimea. That's check one. They're saying, got to have that. Independence for Luhansk and Donetsk. That's check two. Mm-hmm. And demilitarization or denazification. I don't know how you'd define that one, but that's the third check here. So is the probability high or low, do you believe, that you get to Russia getting all three check marks? Demilitarization.
I'm going to go, and what? They also want Ukraine to officially declare that they have no interest in NATO.
Yeah. The whole NATO thing, that's the fourth feather. That apparently that's real important, and it has been to them for a long time.
It has been. You're not going to officially get Ukraine to say that. So if we're looking at check, I'm going to say that Russia gets two of those four check marks, and it comes to an end. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you were just like, hey, which two?
Yeah.
Russia will give in on Ukraine making a statement about not wanting to be part of NATO.
Right.
And Crimea. That's just a guess, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting one, honestly, because it just seems like the puzzle pieces don't fit very well together. Mm-mm. And with the trouble and it's always been contested, the whole area, even back before World War I, the area of the western part of Ukraine, very different than the eastern part of Ukraine. They've been doing a little digging and research, watching some YouTube videos and things of the western side. Beautiful place, though. I mean, absolutely breathtaking, beautiful. But it has been separated from the war a good bit. There hasn't really been a whole lot on the west side.
There are a couple of things that I think are important to remember about this. Number one, there are no winners. This is a conflict that has been going on a really long time, and I'm not just talking about the current conflict. And thousands and thousands of thousands of people who didn't have to die have died in the last 3 years. So there are no winners. That's number one. Number two, these are two of the most corrupt countries on the face of the earth. Period. And that is not being sympathetic to Russia. I know the oligarch structure, Vladimir Putin, communism, throttling down of the people, keeping your thumb on them, Big Brother is watching, all of that stuff. Russia, bad. Vlad Putin, bad. Now, as it pertains to the relationship with Vladimir Putin, just because somebody's bad or just because a country is bad doesn't mean you can completely ignore them. You still got to figure out a way to work with them. And I think that's what Donald Trump's trying to do. It was interesting, one of the statements that came out of that meeting yesterday was, Putin in that heavy accented Russian saying that, everybody talks about, Donald Trump and Vlad Putin, they're like, they're best buddies. They're pen pals. And Putin said, if he's my friend, I would hate to be across the negotiating table from him if I was his enemy. There wasn't a whole lot of give in Trump and the United States yesterday in that call and in some of these negotiations. But all I was talking about was Russia there. Ukraine's got a bunch of bad guys, too. It has a history of corruption. It has a history of, even if you don't want to call it outright oligarchy, the dudes in high power end up with a lot of money in their pockets. Some might say that's not so different than the United States. Lance might be one of those people that says, hey, is that really so different than the United States? I'm not sending you down the rabbit hole of stock trading for congressional members today.
Ooh.
Not doing it today. Nope. We got some other news headlines to get to. We'll turn our attention to sports when we come back. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Thanks for being with us.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, preacher man talking on TV, cutting down my rock and roll. He wants me to send a donation. He said he's worried about my soul. Now Jesus walked on the water. Lord, you know I believe that's true. But sometimes I think Jimmy Swaggart, no gonna do a little walking too.
Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Glad to be starting our day with you. Thank you for starting your day with us. Pearl, Mississippi last night. Trustmark Park was the site of Southern Miss playing better baseball than they did 3 weeks ago and getting a 6-2 win over Ole Miss. The Rebels out hit the Golden Eagles 8-7, but in the column that counts the most, Southern Miss 6, Ole Miss 2. Cade Townsend got the start for the Rebels last night. Gave up a couple of runs in the bottom of the first inning. Ole Miss tied it up at 2 in the top of the third, but it was the bottom of the fifth inning that was the difference for the Golden Eagles. They pushed 4 runs across and got the victory 6-2. Winning pitcher last night was Chandler Best, the second of 5 pitchers used for the Golden Eagles. 6 different pitchers took the mound last night for Ole Miss. Gunnar Dennis took the loss. He was great in his first inning of work, and then he only recorded one more out and gave up 4 earned runs. And so Southern Miss gets the win. Good victory for the Golden Eagles. They move to 15-6 on the year. Ole Miss with the loss falls to 15-5. Rebels have now lost 4 out of their last 5, going back to last week's midweek game against South Alabama. If you're an Ole Miss fan, you hope that Missouri is just what the doctor ordered as the Rebels head to Columbia this weekend for a 3-game series that starts on Friday night. Meanwhile, Southern Miss is headed to Funroe, headed down to Funroe, Louisiana, taking on ULM, and ULM's head coach, Mike Federico, former pitching coach on Scott Berry's staff at Southern Miss. And if you want one more connection, you don't know it already, his son, Hayden Federico, is now playing for Ole Miss. Hayden Federico had 1 hit and a couple of walks.
What a player. And, hey, I want to give a shout-out to Jake Cook and Nick Monaster. Grew up with both of those kids' parents. They both start for Southern Miss.
Yep.
Great kids, great parents, and just wanted to give them a shout-out. Both of them had a pretty good ball game last night. And Nick is I was just visiting with his dad the day before yesterday at a baseball game. So, yeah.
There you go. Jake Cook scored 2 runs last night, had a hit, 2 hits for Ozzie Pratt. Davis Gillespie had a hit, drove in 3 runs in the ball game last night for the Golden Eagles as they got the win. It was kind of an interesting night in the SEC. I'll just give you a quick run of the scoreboard. Alabama beat South Alabama 6-5. Crimson Tide are now 21-1 on the season. That's good, right?
Yeah.
That's
especially
real
given
good.
A couple of years ago, their coach was gambling on games. I mean,
not their current coach.
Yeah, no, not this one. Yeah, but the other guy, Bohannon.
Yeah, Brad Bohannon is off somewhere doing who knows what. Arkansas beat Oral Roberts 4-1. Auburn got a win over Alabama State 13-9. Florida, no trouble with Jacksonville, beat the Dolphins 16-4. By the way, this breaking news: the left has determined that Dolphins are communist.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Murray State clipped Kentucky last night in Lexington 5-4. LSU beat New Orleans 11-1. The LSU Fighting Tigers are now 21-1 on the season. You had Mississippi State, no trouble with Jackson State. Jackson State had 6 players that were suspended after what some people call a brawl. We use the term brawl way too loosely. There was a bit of a kerfluffle at the end of the Jackson State Prairie View A&M game over the weekend, and you had 6 Jackson State players suspended. Mississippi State, 16 runs on 13 hits. They did not make an error. Noah Sullivan pitched 3 innings, gave up only 1 hit, and Kevin Manell was the winning pitcher last night for State. 16-3, the Bulldogs over the Tigers of Jackson State. Oklahoma beat UT Arlington. Oklahoma will host Mississippi State this coming weekend. South Carolina by 1, 4-3 over College of Charleston. And how about the previously undefeated Tennessee Volunteers? They are undefeated no more. East Tennessee State in 10 innings, 7-6 over the Volunteers.
That's it, yeah. Somebody had to beat them, right?
Yeah. Also, 17-game winning streak comes to an end for the Texas Longhorns. The Roadrunners of UTSA went to Dish Falk Field at Austin, and they won 8-7 in 12 innings last night. How about that?
Sometimes they're ugly, but you got to get the W. And, that Texas team's pretty solid.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
They gave Ole Miss a pretty good little run in that first weekend. Had a great weekend in Starkville this past.
Got the sweep.
That's hard to do on the road. I don't care who you're playing.
17-game. So you had a 20-game winning streak. Well, really longer than that if you want to go back to last season for Tennessee. Came to an end. 20-game winning streak this year. 17-game win streak for Texas came to an end. A&M beat Corpus Christi 17-7. They're now 11-9 on the year. Vanderbilt beat Belmont last night as well. So a busy Tuesday night of baseball last night. You got that clip handy that I sent to you just a second ago?
Give me a second, I'll grab it.
You may have to let a commercial or something roll through as well.
Yeah.
The NCAA tournament officially began last night. They call it the First Four. It was in Dayton, Ohio. 2 games. The second game of the night featured North Carolina and San Diego State. And North Carolina beat the brakes off of San Diego State. That game is significant because North Carolina will now play Ole Miss in the first round. That's in Milwaukee on Friday, 3 o'clock Central Time is the tip-off for that ball game. 95-68, R.J. Davis led the way for North Carolina with 26 points. The first game of the night was for a 16 seed. St. Francis out of Pennsylvania and Alabama State were tied at 68 with just a couple of seconds remaining in the ballgame. A late St. Francis turnover gave Alabama State a chance for a big play at the end.
Yeah.
Not ready yet?
I've got the one that I pulled up. It's the North Carolina and San Diego, but it keeps pulling that one up, too.
I got you.
They're doing the same one. So,
well, I'll just tell you what happened, and if we can play it for you, you can get the call from CBS. Alabama State inbounding from underneath St. Francis's goal. So they got to go 94 feet for the basket. They got 2 seconds to do it. They throw a full-on baseball pass, like a center fielder trying to get the ball all the way to home plate. And it was bobbled around like a hot potato. An Alabama State player, one of the Hornets, comes up with the loose ball, lays it in, and March Madness happened. I mean, it was incredible. And Alabama State's players went crazy. They get the win. 70-68 was the final. And what an incredible way to start the NCAA tournament. First game of the tournament ends with a buzzer beater on a length-of-the-floor pass. Alabama State, you remember, won against Jackson State in the SWAC championship game, and that's why they got in the tournament in the first place. C-Spire text line is open to you at 601-879-4395.
Hey, I went and got it from Twitter if you want to play that Alabama State clip.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's roll with that thing. Let's see.
Looking for some March magic right here. Moncrief at the horn, and it is over in Dayton. Alabama State has won its first ever NCAA tournament game in a thriller.
A thriller, as they say.
So sorry, this is C-Spire text line. So sorry that this channel was turned into a sports channel.
For 10 minutes.
Y'all have 3 hours in the evening, and you still give it another hour in the morning. It was a great channel when Paul was doing it. You know, I occasionally listen to Paul Gallo. I didn't always get up early enough to hear the entire show, but you know something that for 35 years Paul did? He spent one segment in the morning talking a little bit about sports.
Yeah. Every
Perez
day.
would read every baseball score that had been played in the last 26 years. I love you, Perez. And they talk about other things. And every great once in a while, Paul would even do an interview with somebody to talk about sports. And I know that for a fact because I was occasionally a guest with Paul to talk about sports. And we have carried on the great tradition of the Gallo Show of spending one segment, 10 minutes and 38 seconds, talking about sports. So I'm sorry if you only listen to 10 minutes and 38 seconds of the show in the morning. It's really the only time we talk about sports. And we do it every morning in the same way that it's been done every morning for the last 35 years. So you, my friend, are full of crap.
There you go.
This is not a 3-hour show about sports. It's anything but that. But we give you some sports headlines. And guess what? There are a lot of people that like that. I'm assuming you missed the part where I told you that both Josh Harkins and Daniel Sparks would be in studio starting at 7:20, and the Speaker of the House, Jason White, would be with us starting at 8:05. I'm assuming you missed all of the news headlines. I'm assuming you missed some of the birthdays in the on this day that we gave you. I'm assuming you missed the story about Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin with their extended call yesterday trying to negotiate a peace settlement for the war in Ukraine. I'm assuming you missed yesterday when we talked about the Israelis firing all over Gaza and more than 400 people dying. I'm assuming you missed all of that. But thanks for tuning in for the 10 minutes and 38 seconds where we gave you scores about the NCAA tournament and the baseball that happened in the state of Mississippi. You schmuck. Listen to more than just 10 minutes of the show. Good grief. We'll be back. Lottery update. Hope you can stomach that.
From the Venable.
shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
If you didn't get rich yesterday, you got a chance again tonight. We start with Lotto America, no jackpot winner. This update from the Mississippi Lottery is brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery, their website, mslottery.com. Lotto America, no jackpot winner last night. That pot just keeps on growing up to $26.77 million. Next drawing coming tonight. Monday night's drawing for Lotto America yielded these numbers: 11, 12, 20, 29, 23. The star ball was 8. The all-star bonus multiplier is 5. Tonight's drawing has an estimated cash value of $12,490,000. That's a big number. You want a really big number? How about Powerball? Estimated jackpot tonight, $416 million. Cash value of $194.1 million. After taxes and everything, probably putting about $110, $115 million in your pocket. The numbers from Monday's drawing, and we told you yesterday, there was a $100,000 winner in Mississippi after they matched 4 of the white balls plus the Powerball. So you don't have to get all of the numbers to be a winner, but you want to be the big winner, you got to match all the numbers. Monday night's numbers: 11, 18, 23, 38, 60. The Powerball was 9. The Power Play multiplier was 2.
Well, double play. Numbers from Monday, March 17th, 4, 19, 21, 38, and 64. You had a Powerball of 26 on the double play. Roll over to Mega Millions with no jackpot winners up to $324 million. You have a drawing on Friday, March the 21st. Estimated cash value on that, $150.6 million. The numbers from the Tuesday drawing: 27, 38, 31, 32, 33. Mega Ball of 24, Megaplier multiplier of 3.
No jackpot winner on the Mississippi Match 5. The estimated jackpot tonight, $730,000. Last night's numbers were 10, 13, 15, 17, and 19.
Wow, all of them within 20 there.
Mm-hmm.
Cash 3, $500 Tuesday, midday number 700, evening 693. Cash for $5,000 prize on the midday, 5179. Evening numbers 4095. Fireball of 8 and a cash pop of 2 in the midday. Fireball of 2 in the evening with a cash pop of 3.
Love saying this. The Pink Panther Diamond Tripler bonus promotion rolls on. That scratch-off is your shot at a top prize of $100,000, and that's not all. With the lottery's newest bonus promotion, you can enter your non-winning tickets into the Mississippi Lottery Second Chance portal for another shot at $100,000 after the game ends, and the chance to win bonus prizes starting at $100 gift cards and going all the way up to $15,000 in cash. The next bonus drawing is tomorrow. Stay tuned for the announcement of the winner cities and all the details. MSLottery.com is the place to go to keep up with all of that. You can click on the bonus promos tab. Then one more thing, Mississippi Match 5 jackpot. Gave you that a second ago, up to $730,000. The largest ever Mississippi Match 5 jackpot, $905,000 and change. That happened in February of 2023. The winning ticket at the time was purchased at Sprint Mart in West Point. Will that jackpot continue to climb, or will you see another winner with tonight's drawing? It's drawn daily at 9:30 p.m. Get your ticket today for a chance to win big with Mississippi Match 5. Speaking of winners, let's give you a few, shall we? A Pearl Man won $2,600 on a ticket from Roop Express in Jackson. That was on a Cash 4 scratch-off. A Shibuda Man, $2,600 on a ticket from Ramey's in Waynesboro. And a Lexington player won $2,700 on a ticket from GPM in Durant.
Well, cash pop winners, a Greenville woman won $1,000 on a ticket from Friends Food and Fuel in Greenville. Match 5 winners, a Tupelo man, $800 in the pocket on a ticket from the Sun Express in Tupelo. And a Crystal Springs man won $1,000 on a ticket from Quick Trip in Terry.
Grand in the pocket of a South Haven man on a scratch-off Extreme Payday winner. Bought that ticket at Tobacco Warehouse in South Haven. Tupelo man won $2,500 on a ticket from North Auburn Grocery in Tupelo. That was on a 200X Cash Blitz scratch-off.
Well, you had the 20-time, 200-time Cash Blitz winners.
There you go.
Crystal Springs man with $1,000 in the pocket. The Vicksburg man won $1,000. A Sturgis man won $1,000. A New Ebron player with $1,000 in winnings, a Hazelhurst player won $1,000, and a Jackson player won $1,000. And finish it off with a Brookhaven woman on the $20 colossal cash winner. She won $1,000 from the Be Quick in Brookhaven.
Are you looking for game-changing technology? Then you need C-Spire on your team. 5G wireless, fiber to the home internet, and business IT solutions built as tough as your defense. Learn more at cspire.com. C-Spire, inspired by you. We've got a busy rest of the day coming up right here on Mornings with Richard Cross. About 25 minutes from right now. Both Josh Harkins and Daniel Sparks will join us. Senators Josh Harkins and Daniel Sparks. We'll talk with them about that income tax reform legislation that is making its way through the Capitol. I hesitate to use a sports analogy, but I'll do it nonetheless. Tennis, volleyball. Seems to be a bit of volleying back and forth with amendments and passages in one way or the other. We'll see where this is headed when it all shakes out. And then Jason White, Speaker of the House, will join us in the 8 o'clock hour this morning. Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross. Quick timeout. Got the news and then more as we begin the 7 o'clock hour right after this on Super Talk, Mississippi.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Mornings with Richard Cross, here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the Super Talk app.
I need to let it all play?
Not really, but it is his theme song.
Frogger? You couldn't get Pong?
No, that's his nickname.
Good to be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Streaming at supertalk.fm and on Super Talk TV. And glad to be with you on 12 Super Talk Mississippi radio stations covering all 82 counties in the Magnolia State. You want to join the conversation? We'd love to hear from you on the C-Spire text line, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. Even if you don't agree, even if you don't like the content, we welcome you on the C-Spire text line.
We're doing another hour of sports here in a minute, if you're not careful.
Well, we're bringing in the chairman on the Senate side, and we'll see if we want to talk sports. Probably not. I appreciate punctuality. I even appreciate more when we have a guest that's early. And Josh Harkins early this morning, joining us in studio. Daniel Sparks going to be by in a little while as well as we dive into what happened yesterday on the Senate floor. And before we do that, I want to remind you that this hour of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. You can find them online at MWGEmployerServices.com. Whether you are dealing with payroll issues or any of the other myriad things that, as a business owner, you have to handle on a daily basis, they can help you out at MWG Employer Services. I'll give you the website one more time, just, for good measure. MWGEmployerServices.com, or give them a call, 601-206-7966. Senator Josh Harkins joins us. I had an interesting experience yesterday. My first time in the gallery of the Mississippi Senate. You walked in and you said, "What did I think?" And I said, "Candidly, you guys waste a lot of time."
Well, it's not sometimes it's not the fastest method, but it's what we've been handed to us, and that's how we have to go through the process.
The procedural piece of it is fascinating. If you've never sat in the chamber, if you've never sat in the gallery and kind of watched a debate or some of the proceedings that happen, there's a lot of formality. There's a lot of procedural stuff that goes on, and it is fascinating to watch.
Oh, yeah. sometimes I'll talk to the pages who are high school students that are sitting there, and you think about it from their perspective, being 16, 17, 18 years old watching this, and you just you look at their face sometimes, and they're just like, sometimes some of them are staring like at a wall, and some of them are actually getting into it and listening and asking questions, and you forget that they're standing behind you when you're presenting bills and you're talking about issues, and people are getting passionate about a position, or trying to pass something or defeat something, and all these kids are sitting there watching, and you wonder what's going through their minds. Like, this is how it goes down. So
my oldest daughter was a page last year for Senator Nicole Boyd, and it was an interesting experience for her. Yeah. She's like, I'd like to do that again. She said a lot of it was boring, but I do think it is an eye-opening experience and a pretty cool thing for a young person to see the way state politics works in Mississippi.
What's encouraging is you do have kids that will ask questions like, well, why did y'all? Why was this? What was this issue about? Was this about something that we're gonna? They'll go into their questions from their perspective with their limited knowledge of life and their experiences. But to see kids interested and to see them kind of getting into the debate on the floor. Sometimes a lot of this is over their head. And, but to see them,
sometimes it's over my head.
Yeah, but to see them actually interested in it, and when you talk to them and you explain to them. When I have my pages come in, I usually on Thursday will take them to lunch and we'll sit there and I'll ask them questions, or let them ask me questions on what happened over the week, and it's encouraging that some of them are really interested in it, and hopefully one day will be future leaders in our state.
As just kind of a point, how do people do that? Like if you have a young person that's like, you know what, I'd love to spend a week during the session with a senator or a
contact your representative or senator and just let them know that your child is interested, and I would say have the child contact them. It means more to have a young person reach out and say, hey, I really would be interested in paging for you. And you can look at their. I usually ask them to. Talk to them, or if it's somebody I know that they're interested in it, and it's not going to be like they're going to come up there and sleep in the corner and play on their phone the whole time. It's I'd like for them to at least get an experience about what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, and hopefully it's to impress upon them that we're trying to make put the state in a position that when they're older, they can get a job here, they can live here, raise a family here, and continue to be a Mississippian.
I know we've got some important stuff to talk about, but one more.
You want to talk about sports? I mean, how dare you talk about a subject that is just absolutely not on the minds of any Mississippians?
Of no interest to anyone.
No interest to anybody.
No college baseball, no NCAA tournament. No. How does seating assignments in the Senate chamber work? Because it's fascinating to watch. As I was looking yesterday.
Seniority.
It's that simple?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You start at the top and work your way down.
I will say that 3-seat desk in the very back looks pretty comfortable.
I sat there. It's by the air conditioners. Usually we're in the session January through March, but sometimes there's a lot of. It gets hot, and you sit by the air conditioners. It's for me, it's you got a perspective of the whole chamber. You can see everything.
Do you even have a desk anymore? It felt like you just kind of walk around the whole time.
Yeah, I've got a desk in the back. I'm one row up from the back. So
no, you're not.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
that's the kind of student he was too.
I sat by you.
I was in the back.
So Senator Sparks is coming in a little while. Yeah. He's all the way up at the front, but you've been in for the same amount of time, haven't you?
No, I've been there longer than Senator Sparks.
So
this is my fourth term.
So you just like the desk in the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you kind of.
So seniority means you get to pick your spot, not you automatically are on the front row.
No, you pick your spot. I mean, you can be there as long as you want, and you want to be up on the front, you can be up on the front.
How long has Hob Bryan been in the same desk?
He's moved around, I think.
Okay.
He's moved around, but he's been there 30-something years. He's the, quote, dean of the Senate.
He knows where Steve buried the booze, right?
Possibly. He may have a good idea.
I'm just going to sit that one out.
It's a, but I think the seating, it just depends on, I'm a kind of person, when I go into a restaurant, I want my back to the wall where I can see everything in front of me.
What are you, like a CIA agent?
No, I just, you want to make sure I got everything in front of me. I know what my options are.
I actually want to ask you about Hob Bryan for a second, because I've watched a couple of hearings online. I saw it. He is in not in the majority party. He's a Democrat. He's been in there a long time. clearly, when you listen to him talk, very, very smart guy.
Very passionate.
When I think of a Democrat or a liberal, I don't immediately think of Hob Bryant in the sense of like a national Democrat, because some of his ideas are somewhat conservative. But a guy who has been there for a long time and fights for his constituents, despite the fact that more times than not, the legislation that he's either pushing for or advocating against is the opposite of what is going to be passed.
Yeah. Look, he's I've always had a good relationship with Hob in the sense that, you go and talk to him and explain, your position. He may disagree, and he may give a very passionate and eloquent speech or a tirade, depending on which perspective you have against it or for it. But the one thing you can't deny is Hob is he puts a lot of effort and his heart is in the right place, and that's all you can ask for. I nothing but respect for Senator Bryan.
So yesterday was a significant day in that it was a deadline day.
It's very significant.
We've talked about this tax reform bill since, I don't know, day one, and even
2022.
Well, yeah, but as it pertains to this year, since the opening day, the opening gavel of the Senate and of the House, obviously House Bill 1 rolled out right out of the gate. A little while longer before the Senate rolled out their plan. There's been back and forth amendments, but the significance of yesterday, had the Senate not passed an amended tax reform bill, it was dead. Now, JT Mitchell says nothing is ever dead until it's like dead.
Dead. I mean, if there's a code section out there, if there's some sliver of hope it can be attached to another bill, it takes till the end of the session when you leave the building for good for the session to know that a bill's dead.
32-16, though, was the passage of the amended bill yesterday. 60-40 is what it takes. Is that right?
It takes 3/5.
I'm sorry.
3/5 on a money vote.
Okay. Well, it's 60-40.
Yeah.
Not a math guy, but hey.
I don't do public math.
You start questioning.
Lance and I know. Public math
like it's 60-40. No, it's 3/5. Isn't that the same thing?
Yes, it's the same thing.
And there were 4 Democrats that voted for that bill yesterday. And we
had bipartisan support on both Senate plans. Both Senate, the tax plans will be presented in chamber.
But without that, it doesn't pass yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what was in the amended Senate bill when we come back, and then what the future looks like. Obviously, the House bill has a different opinion on some of the issues. We'll talk about some of those when we come back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Senator Josh Harkins is my guest. Senator Daniel Sparks will join us in just a little while.
From the benefit.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Thanks for being with us on this Wednesday morning, middle of the week. Spring begins tomorrow, and yet it's going to cool down just a little bit. Then it'll warm up, and before we know it, it'll be heat index of 105, and we'll be wondering when fall is coming. Glad to be with you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. If you want to join the conversation, if you got a question, we'll try to work that in as well on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Visiting with Senator Josh Harkins, and now Senator Daniel Sparks joins us as well. We're talking about the significance of yesterday. It was a deadline day in the legislature in Mississippi. The Senate passed 32-16, an amended tax reform bill. Obviously, we've gone back and forth. We've talked about the differences of the House bill and the Senate bill. So let's start there. The bill, Senator Harkins, that the Senate passed yesterday has 4 major tenets. Give me the elevator pitch version of those 4, and then we can kind of dive in a little deeper.
Well, it is for the most part on the tax side of it, it's the same bill we passed in the Senate, just we added a trigger to it at the end of the 4-year reduction in the income tax from 4% to 3%. We basically take a look at the trigger going forward would look at what is the cost of a 1% cut in the income tax rate, and as of the last full year we have the income tax data. the 1 point cut was around $407 million. And so if that is your cost...
That was when you went from 5% to 4%.
Well, that was at 5%. When the last 2023 was the last year of full data of income tax collections. 24 will be in at the end of October. So by January, you'll have what the cost of a 1% reduction in the rate would be from 24's income tax data, because people are still filing their income taxes. So according to 2023, it's about $407 million for 1 point. And so what we do is we say, if your surplus, when the trigger starts to go into effect, if the surplus of revenue generated in the prior year is greater than the spend in that next fiscal year, that surplus compared to a 1% rate cut, if it's 85% of that number, we'd reduce it by 0.2. We go from 3 to 2.8. If the surplus in money is 25%, 100% of that number, we would reduce it by 25 basis points, meaning going down to 2.75. Or if the economy was really rolling and we had revenue coming in and it's 115% of that cost of a 1% takedown, then we would reduce the income tax rate by 30 basis points, going to 2.7.
Okay.
Every year after that, that's what you would judge. So basically, you're letting your economy dictate. How the economy is performing will dictate the rate and the speed in which we reduce the income tax to zero.
That was not an elevator pitch, by the way.
Well, it's not an elevator pitch, but it's
but it's complicated.
It's complicated, and look, when you're talking about income tax, it's important how you cut the tax matters. Just the headline of we're cutting taxes to X point is one thing, but how you eliminate it, how you take away a third of the revenue to the state over a period of time matters, because we don't want to do anything that wrecks the budget. You don't want to do anything that puts us in a predicament where we're having to come back and reassess and redo things. There's states that have done it before, and that's what got them into that trouble is going too fast and too big and not being prepared.
And we've used Kansas as an example before, where they just cut it all out and then they had to go back and add income tax, and that's certainly not anything. I want to back up, though, if we can, to Monday when this plan came out, before it came out for debate on the floor. I thought it was significant because it was the first time that the Senate had put forth a plan that had an all the way to no income tax as a possibility.
Yes. We've always stated that, you can cut taxes and take a look, go to 3 or 4 year tax cut and say, all right, we're gonna guarantee we're cutting from this point to this point. And then when we get to that point, we can take a look around, look what the environment looks like, see how the state's performing, and then we can proceed with more cuts. Both chambers have to vote on spending bills. Both chambers have to take a look and see what the environment looks like. And we can I think we've been good stewards over the last 4 or 5 years of the revenue that's come in. We've made significant investments in our infrastructure and all the things that we've done, paid down debt. So we've been on a good trajectory of how we've treated the excess revenue, and we've been cutting taxes. We're cutting taxes on top of cutting taxes. So the notion that we would not cut taxes in the future, I don't subscribe to, but we're just saying. But
there wasn't a willingness to codify that.
Well, no,
until earlier this week.
Yes, essentially, that's our position. We've been saying, look, we'll cut taxes to a point, and then we'll regroup and cut again.
All right. So the 4 tenets that I mentioned a second ago of the Senate bill: grocery tax goes from 7% to 5%, effective July 1st this year. Income tax will go from 4% to 0% if certain triggers are met, but that's over an extended period of time.
It goes from 4 to 3 regardless of triggers.
Going to 4 to 3 first.
Yes.
But then it can go from 3 potentially all the way to 0 if the state is doing well economically. An increase in infrastructure spending based on a new gas excise tax, 3 cents a year for the next 3 years, going to 9 cents total at the end of 3 years, and then indexed going forward after that. And then the final piece of it was PERS, and we want to talk with Senator Sparks about that. Tier 5, and full candor, I sent Senator Sparks a message yesterday. I said, I need a crash course on Tier 5 to try and understand this.
There's no elevator pitch for a crash course on Tier 5.
So, let me say, nutshell on Tier 5. Most everybody recognizes that PERS as it exists right now, and I say most everybody because there were some people that spoke on the floor yesterday that said this is not true at all, that PERS as it exists right now is not sustainable and has an actuarial table that is going to ultimately bankrupt the system if there are not changes. Is that accurate?
Well, we have $35 billion of assets, so the system is not anywhere near close to bankruptcy. It is 55.9% funded. The desire is to be 100% funded. The green line is 80% funded. So that's when we get into the actuarial piece, that's the issue. The reason we are in the position we're in is the legislature, this is no fault of any employee of the state of yesterday or the future, is that they implemented changes to the PERS system and didn't fund it at the time. And so it's now built, and it's become this $26.5 billion liability. What we're really doing is moving from a traditional defined benefit plan with a guaranteed cost of living, which is an old school type of pension and retirement that no one in private or government is setting up anymore, to a hybrid, which will be part defined benefit, part defined contribution, which is like a 401k. It's allowing a new generation of employees to have an opportunity to build wealth in their 401k side, but yet also continue to have a piece of the defined benefit for a stream of income in the future.
All right, so one of the things that I think is really important, and maybe the most important piece of this, because the question exists for existing state employees. What about my benefits right now? I was promised people get mad when you call it a 13th check. That annual cost of living increase. I was promised. I went into the workforce. I have contributed to this. The state has said they're going to contribute to this. And now you want to change it.
That's not accurate.
I mean, there was a question from a senator on the floor yesterday about his retirement. And I think he was painting a picture of, hey, this is a question that people, am I going to get the benefits that I have paid for? And you were pretty passionate about saying, yes, we are on the hook for this and we are going to pay it.
And that's very true. Number one, no one who is an employee today that got hired yesterday or will get hired before, March 1st, 2026, they're in the tier they're in. Their benefits are secure. I got the calls last year. People were concerned we were going to change the system. I told them my commitment has always been to pay what we owe. The employees have earned it. They've done their part. It's time for the state to do its part. So the Tier 5 piece has no impact on anyone who's a current employee, retiree, or beneficiary, except for the fact that Tier 5 makes the whole system stronger. It will help us pay off this unfunded actuarial liability faster, and that's why the PERS board endorsed it. The board that is elected by retirees, beneficiaries, and current employees, they voted with 8 yay votes and 1 nay vote to endorse the framework of the Tier 5 that we presented yesterday. Now, it's going to take more money, too, and that was mentioned, and I've never denied that it's going to take more money. And we are committed to put more money, put $110 million into PERS last year. I think the commitment is there to continue to do those kind of things. But we also are going to find money, and one of the things, and I really do appreciate Chairman Harkins recognizing that you can't talk about revenue and the financial status of your state and not look at the liabilities. And so that's why this is in the bill, is because we have to pay the debt.
Let me ask you this, and we may have to get to it on the other side. You just mentioned, in a positive way, we put $110 million toward PERS a year ago. And yet I have heard from the Senate side with regard to the House plan, we're going to put $100 million into PERS on an annual basis. That number's kind of been poo-pooed. Oh, that $100 million is not going to do anything. But I hear you saying, but last year we put $110 million into it.
It takes reform plus money. Got to have both.
Is there an unwillingness on the House side to do both of those things?
They've been very receptive in conversations. I've had several conversations with them in the hall. I hate our bills died earlier. They didn't explain to me why, but they have been very receptive. There's some people down there that understand it.
But because outside of this tax reform bill, there was a package of bills that addressed PERS separate from this.
That's correct. We passed all 4.
We'll pick this conversation up. Darren and Jackson ask a really good big-picture question. We'll start with that when we come back on Mornings with Richard Cross. Friend of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. My appreciation to both Josh Harkins and Daniel Sparks, senators in Mississippi, for joining us as we talk about this tax reform bill. And programming note from the other side of the Capitol, Jason White will join us in the 8 o'clock hour. You guys are welcome to hang around. It's not going to happen, is it?
Well, if we need to do the Oklahoma drill or anything.
I was going to ask.
I brought my referee jersey, so we're good.
Look,
so Trey Lamar yesterday, by the way, I asked if the two of you just needed to get in a room and just fight this thing out, kind of old school two-a-days style, whether we go bull in a ring or Oklahoma drill, and he was quite confident in how the results of that would be, and it was not in favor of you.
I appreciate Representative Lamar's gusto, but I saw Representative Lamar blow his calf out jogging to first base last summer in an Alabama-Mississippi softball game. I'm not sure he wants any of it. So we
need to organize.
I feel like there is a fundraising opportunity for some entity here.
We've got to have a field day down at the Capitol, like the old high school where you go out and
field day. Yeah,
Lance,
the three-legged race.
Lance, maybe this is the way that we fund PERS going forward.
Yeah, this is how we do it.
The Ooga Booga race. Yeah.
So Darren and Jackson on the C Spire text line, and I think this is a big picture question, but it's a relevant question. What happens if a couple of years after completely eliminating the income tax, our economy tanks? Would we re-implement the income tax? And I'll let you answer that, but I mean...
Well, I think one of the steps we're taking in this process is we're changing the Senate position is to change our rainy day fund from a 10% of appropriation to a higher percentage of revenue. So right now, at 10% of revenue, or 10% of appropriation, it'd be about $700 million in the rainy day fund. And
based on a $7 billion
budget. And instead of, like right now, our revenue is about 7.6 in that range, we would take it to a percentage of revenue, which would make it a higher amount that would be in the rainy day fund. We would want to go to 12% now, and then eventually by 2030 take that up to 13% revenue. And we've had
was that new? Had that been in this proposal all along, or is that something that was added to the amendment?
That was part of this discussion going forward. We're going to put a trigger in there. We want to up the rainy day fund, because if you're going to eliminate one of your sources of revenue, you need to make sure you have
your saving
account a little bigger and to match it. And look, there will be downturns in the economy. There'll be upswings. Historically, you go back and look at what over the last 20 years, if you take out the anomalies that are out there, you're about 3% growth year over year is what we average. But hopefully we'll be maintaining our spending in check, and we'll have a healthy rainy day fund to weather those storms. And we've had to cut budgets in the past, and we'll have to do it in the future, I'm sure, but we'll make it.
PERS question here, and this is a really good one. I have 6.5 years in the state system, but I'm not currently with the state. If I were to go back and work with the state, am I grandfathered in at the previous level?
Yes. The only way you would not be, quote, grandfathered in is if you took a full refund when you left, because you literally left the system, not leaving employment, but you literally said, when I leave, I'm not vested, give me my money. But this person, their answer is they'll come back in the tier in which they were hired.
Okay, so for the people, Senator Harkins, that are saying, all right, so the House has passed a version, the Senate has passed a version, they've passed these back and forth, what happens now? How are we getting to the finish line where there actually is a plan for an elimination of the state income tax? The gas tax goes up. We know that that's part of both plans, regardless of what the numbers are. The numbers are a little bit different. I do think the House amendment went to an excise tax when they had a sales tax on gas,
yes.
A little bit higher than the Senate plan. Theirs is at $5.55, ultimately at 15 cents on an increase, and the Senate side is 3.33, getting to 9%, then it's indexed going forward. What's next?
Well, we will currently, it was held on a motion to reconsider. We'll dispose of that, I think, today. And Representative Lamar and I will get together, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more heads in the room that will discuss what are the opportunities and what are the options going forward. And that's where
I've asked you this before, and I've asked Trey Lamar this as well. Where is there room for negotiation at this point? Because There was a razor-thin vote yesterday in the Senate to pass this version of the bill. One of the things that the House bill has is an increase in the sales tax.
Yeah.
I've kind of been led to believe that that's a non-starter for much of the Senate.
That's a high hurdle for the Senate. That's been a point of contention on our side that we just don't have the support and don't have the votes to do that. And it's not something that the Senate position has been out there. We've said we're going to let the growth in the economy dictate the speed and the rate at which we eliminate our income tax. And we're not going to raise taxes on others to try to fund other ways to give money back to people. We're just going to let the economy do the talking.
At the risk of angering some people in the governor's office, Tate Reeves, the governor of the state of Mississippi, has been adamant that he wants the full elimination of the state income tax. Obviously, it's the job of the legislature to implement something like that would go into law. What's the governor's plan to get to that point?
Well, I haven't had too many discussions with the governor's office this session. I've been locked up in my office trying to come up with a plan, but I have had conversations with him. I know it's something that he's passionate about.
Very clearly.
Yeah, and I also know his affinity for not wanting to raise taxes. So I believe we've offered a plan that accomplishes the stated goal of having a path to elimination, while not raising sales taxes to do it. So I hope he would look favorably upon the Senate action yesterday and recognize that this is a path forward. It gives a guaranteed cut to 3%, which is just about the third or fourth lowest rate in the country. And it also puts in place a method by which we can eliminate the
third or fourth lowest rate outside the states that
the 9 states
no
that don't
state
have
income tax.
Correct. Only one state eliminated their income tax, and it was Alaska, and they found a little small amount of oil underneath their state. So, but the other states, and that's what I tell people all the time when they say, well, why can't we be more like Florida? Well, Florida, they got a 38-cent gas tax. They got taxes on leases. When you lease a building, you pay a sales tax on a lease. You pay taxes when you make real estate purchases.
Well, and a fairly robust tourism industry.
Well, they've got a tourism industry. Every state is different. Every state is different. So people, they like one aspect of a tax policy. They have to take their tax policy in total into consideration. And there's a lot of things. If I overlaid Florida's taxes on Mississippians, your text line would be lit up with people complaining about their property taxes, about having to pay a higher lease rate because of sales tax. There's a whole host of things that are different in each state, and this didn't happen overnight. This is the way it has evolved over time, and changing that takes time. You can't flip these things over real quick and expect to have harmony and everything to be okay. It's a slow roll sometimes with making major tax policy change. I mean, look, the first time we eliminated the 3% bracket, that was just on the first $5,000, and that took several years, and that was only $150 million.
There are Republicans, there are conservatives, Grover Norquist chief among them, that say no tax, period, eliminate it all. I'm not sure exactly how you make that work. We've got people on our text line that say that also. He said, hey, Republicans are supposed to cut taxes, period. Get rid of taxes. I don't know how you do that without the revenue piece. But there are a lot of people that say, okay, I'm listening to all this debate, and it's just a shell game. You're increasing a gas tax, but you're lowering an income tax, and you're just kind of moving the pieces on the board.
I would argue the gas tax is the fairest fee to pay for roads and bridges. The people that use it pay for it. Yeah, the people that use it pay for it.
Or consumption.
The little lady living at St. Catharines Village that's doesn't drive a mile is paying sales tax and income tax on any revenue she may have or whatever, but she's subsidizing the roads right now. She doesn't even use them. But the people that drive across our state that may or may not even stop to fill up gas are driving on it and having the benefit of it. The people that use it should pay for it. But the income tax, that's why we don't raise the sales tax to do that. We're just going to say, look, let's let the economy be the decider of how fast and how quickly we eliminate our income tax. If we're doing good, people are like, oh, we're going to do without this revenue. Well, if you do without the revenue, according to the trigger we put in place, you're going to be generating a lot more money in the economy.
The reduction of the grocery tax is significant to local communities because that's how some of them are making budgets. How are municipalities being made whole in this?
We raise the diversion off of sales tax to the cities specifically on groceries. So right now, cities are getting 18.5% on the sales tax generated from a grocery store. That raises at 25.9%. So they're made whole.
So it's a wash.
It's a wash. They don't lose any money. None of the diversions off of sales tax lose revenue.
We're out of time, both of you. I'll just leave you with this. Does this get done?
I hope so.
During this session?
I hope so.
I hope so. And we also are trying to control spending. That's why I appreciate the trigger on the spending side. If we get our spending in check, we'll get the cuts.
Josh Harkins, Daniel Sparks, thank you both for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mornings with Richard Cross. We've got more with you. Quick time out. We'll wrap up the 7 o'clock hour.
Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
All right, take a second to exhale. I understand that that's a lot of numbers and that's a lot of tax conversation for early in the morning. But I also understand that a lot of you are really plugged in on this debate, on this conversation. We're trying to keep up with it. We're trying to talk about it in a way that is consumable, that's bite-sized. Because, Lance, in a lot of ways, you go back to hey, what's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
You've kind of got to take it that way. And I want to tell you, yesterday was a good experience for me, being in the Capitol and kind of watching this process unfold. And there are some of you, when I say it's really complicated and there are a lot of moving parts, that would say, well, that's their job. That's fair. That's fair. But that doesn't mean it's not complicated, and it doesn't mean that there are not a lot of moving parts and a lot of issues behind the scenes and a lot of stakeholders. Right? So there's you. As you sit at your desk this morning, as you sit behind the wheel of your car on the way to work, as you sit behind the wheel of your car as you're taking your kids to school, and maybe you pulled up the app on your phone to check the balance in your checking account this morning, and you're like, hey, I'm legitimately worried about making ends meet. I know before the end of the month, I got to pay my light bill, I got to put gas in the tank, I got to buy groceries, I got a mortgage payment to make, I'm trying to save a little bit of money, I got a credit card payment to make. All of those things have to happen. And you might even view it as like a sideshow that's happening in Jackson where there's this fighting back and forth and back and forth. But when I say there are a lot of stakeholders, you individually, wherever you sit this morning, whether you're in Picayune or Pontotoc, you're in Shibuda or South Haven, you are a stakeholder in this conversation. And then if you own a gas station, you're a stakeholder in this conversation because there's a debate about fuel taxes, and you're curious about how that affects your bottom line. If you are a current state employee, you are antennas up listening to the conversation about PERS. How is your retirement going to be affected? Maybe you're in college right now. Maybe some of you are listening this morning as you're getting ready to go to class and you're trying to go, well, do I want to work in the private sector or do I want to work in a government job, whether it's state or federal? And so you're looking at, and by the way, Lance, you may have been, I wasn't doing this at 18. I wasn't thinking, well, what's the retirement system going to be like for me 40 years down the road? But maybe some of you are. And you're thinking about, okay, if I enter government work between now and March 1st of next year, I'm in on the old system, and the old system looks like it's pretty good. But if I start after March 1st next year and this gets passed, there's a new system. Yeah, the new system looks like a 401k, which is what most everybody has that's retiring.
Yeah, I mean, at that age, I didn't even know what a retirement plan was, and but I'm with you. It's you got to live up to the deals you've made, and then you've got to rework it so that it can be sustainable.
So that it's sustainable going forward. That's absolutely correct. And then there is a different group of stakeholders that, frankly, is all of us, that are asking a legitimate question. And that question is, where are the cuts? And I don't mean Doge style, where let's find waste and fraud. I mean legitimate cuts that most people, or at least a tenet of conservatism, is cut. Make government smaller. Don't make it bigger. Don't say that government is better suited to handle my finances than I am suited to handle my finances. Where are the cuts?
Well, and that's one of the things, right? If government actually did good things with the money and they were extremely accountable, then people wouldn't be looking at this in a capacity going, well, I can do better with my money. So I guess trust is a big part of that, too. If government were trustworthy, whether it's at the federal or state level, and people saw that the money was being spent in the right way, you would have less drag on, the whole concept of give me more of my money because I know what to do with it better.
Andy on the C Spire text line says it's the same in all our surrounding states, yet things seem to get done there. I would be careful with that opinion. Because if you look at the surrounding states, and I'm not talking about Tennessee, Texas, and Florida where there is no state income tax. Senator Harkins talked about that a little while ago, and he said, look, if you took the tax structure that is in Florida and you overlaid it on Mississippi right now, many of you would scream bloody murder about the way that the tax structure looked going forward. Congratulations, there's no state income tax, but you're paying taxes in these areas that you weren't before. I'm not talking about those states. I'm talking about Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, who are all working on cutting taxes, and some of them have even said, hey, we're going to 0%. But how are they getting there? Is it the right process to get to the finish line? So you heard from the Senate. They passed the amended bill yesterday. Now let's hear from the House side of things. We'll do that on the other side of this break. Speaker of the House, Jason White, joins us in studio. We'll talk about where the House bill is, his reaction to the Senate's amended bill yesterday, and what it's going to take to get to the finish line.
No matter where you're from, Abbeville, Batesville, DeIberville, or any other ville in the SIP, you're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Woo!
How's the hair? Strong. So strong. My hair could lift a car off a baby if it had to. Absolutely.
Because everybody needs a little Ric Flair in their life on a Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Good morning. Welcome again to Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. If you are tired of swimming in numbers, my apologies. We're going to try and get through this a little bit more. I do want to just pause for a second. Lance, you sent this to me a little while ago, and it's significant. Vladimir Putin informed that on March 19th, a prisoner exchange will be carried out between Russia and Ukraine. It is an even swap, 175 for 175. In addition, as a gesture of goodwill, 23 seriously wounded Ukrainian servicemen who are undergoing treatment in Russian medical institutions will be handed over. That report coming from the AP a little bit. So some good, it appears, or at least some attempts coming out of those talks that President Trump had with Vladimir Putin yesterday. Maybe progress toward peace, maybe progress toward a ceasefire. Obviously, that's on the international level. Our focus right now is on the state of Mississippi. We welcome you this morning. I do want to tell you about a couple of things that are coming up on Super Talk Mississippi. One of those is Middays with Gerard Gibbert today will be at the Westin in downtown Jackson, a big event happening there. Let me give you all the details. I thought I had that pulled up already. Maybe not. You're going to be there for the luncheon?
I can give you a key detail, Richard. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel. They've got me delivering the keynote.
Are you the keynote speaker?
For the second year in a row. So, boy, they must have been really...
That is the voice of Jason White. He is the Speaker of the House. So middays with Gerard Gibbert at the Westin, downtown Jackson, for the Madison County Business League and Foundation's 17th annual legislature luncheon. You'll hear from political and business leaders from across the state as they talk about the most important issues, and Gerard will be having conversations with a lot of those folks that are going to be there today. I was told that between 400 and 500 people are expected at the luncheon. Going to be a big deal.
It is a cool event, and that community and that county and the municipalities of it, they've really got it going on, and maybe that goes without saying with all the AWS stuff and
sure.
the economic development that's surrounding those communities. But they are plugged in to the political process and government and economic development almost really like no other in our state. So they work hard at it, not just today and not just their business league, but every day in their communities, and frankly, it shows.
One more thing on Thursday, 7 Days for the Troops is a really incredible Mississippi group that is driven by a single mission to serve those who have bravely served our country. Middays with Gerard Gibbert tomorrow will be at their Southern Salute to the Troops event. That is at the Antler in Tupelo to help show appreciation for those who have served. If I remember correctly, Lance, Pete Hegseth is the speaker for that event. Is that
when we talked to him? Yeah, the gentleman that puts that on, I believe that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool thing. If that's when he gets in the tower and it's up there for
right.
7 days, yeah,
right.
Really great thing.
Great fundraiser there. It's happening at the Antler in Tupelo on Thursday, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is the keynote speaker. My guest, as promised, is Jason White, Speaker of the House. Yesterday was a significant day. It was deadline day, and candidly, it was kind of touch and go with the Senate's amended tax bill. They got the votes to pass that 32-16, and so tax reform policy stays alive at least for a while longer. What's your reaction to what they did in the Senate chamber yesterday?
Look, we were extremely happy. It was an incredibly positive moment for them to. We've had tons of conversations, negotiations, open door meetings, closed door meetings, small group meetings, larger meetings, like all of those things with our Senate counterparts trying to find a way forward. And so that was, for us, that was a big day for them to get to the point. They were at a place for months where we're not going to do anything past this current term, which is only 2.5 years left in it, they went from that place to a place where they actually passed a bill yesterday. That does lead to a path of total elimination. Now, it's not as clear of path as maybe the House would like. It's not as fast a path maybe as the House would like. So there are some major differences, but at least in lawyer speak, I feel like we're moving toward a settlement. They put a flag in the ground, and we've had a flag in the ground for a while. So maybe there's a way now. And my job going forward, Richard, will be to try to lower the temperature and see if we can bring this thing together. There's enough of a framework there that I think we can do it. Now, there are some complicated parts, and it's almost not fair that some other issues have gotten drug up into the tax reform debate. But maybe that's just because they rise to a level of, hey, this should be part of a global settlement, if you will, or all these moving parts.
Well, one of the things that Trey Lamar said to us from the very beginning, and this was even before you guys officially rolled out the bill, is that this is comprehensive tax reform, and it was going to be complicated and it was going to be messy.
And it has certainly been all of those things.
That was not false advertising.
I heard you talking earlier about there's a lot of moving parts, and you watched that debate in the Senate yesterday firsthand, so you saw that. I would just tell you, multiply that times 2.5 and come to the House, because there's 122 opinions and not just 52 opinions. So there's plenty of moving parts on our end of the building as well, and lots of passionate positions that folks have, and you have to figure out how to mesh all those.
Do you believe that ultimately you in the House, Lieutenant Governor and the Hoseman and the Senate want the same thing?
I don't know, but I would say this. Their bill yesterday showed on some level, either through political philosophy, political pressure, spotlight, whatever the reason is, they've moved to a place where total elimination is now on the table. And that's all I've said from the beginning. I have no caveat or like, I believe I was doing an interview yesterday and they said, well, what's the die in the ditch for you? And I said, I've said from the get-go, as long as the legislation includes a clear path to total elimination without any further legislative action. In other words, I've experienced the whims of politicians. I don't want this legislation to get caught up in that in future years. So that's why we're so big of now, while the stars are lined up. Our economy's doing great. Our budget is great. We're living well within our means to the point of a 10% cushion the last few years. Hadn't borrowed money in 3 years. Won't borrow money again this year. Like some very positive things. We have a governor who wants this and has been a great supporter in this. And I can't understate the value of that. The fact that a lot of people say we have a weak gubernatorial position from a constitutional standpoint, but our governor plays the bully pulpit as well as anybody, whether you like it or not. He's real clear about where he is on issues, and unfortunately for me, I've been on the other side of that before with him, and
sure.
So it's much more comfortable to be on this side with him, and so we have welcomed that support, and that has helped move this conversation along.
Forgive me for going off in the weeds, because I want to come back to what you just said about the governor. When you said haven't borrowed money, won't this year, haven't for the last 2 years, that's the state borrowing money, bonding projects. Does that include the universities borrowing money?
Yes, we've just been paying cash.
So neither Mississippi State nor Ole Miss nor Southern Miss nor any of our other schools have borrowed or bonded any projects in the last 3 years?
No.
Or 2 years plus this year?
Now, they have foundations, and they might do some other things that get out there and play on the periphery. But as to my first 8-9 years in the legislature, every year, everybody talked about the big bond bill, the bond bill, the bond bill. And if you were going to get a quote, let's say you needed a new road in your district or repaving or a bridge replaced, or your municipality was having trouble with a new fire station, the place you hoped you might find a little money for your local constituents was through the bond bill. It was like this Christmas tree thing up. It centered around our institutions of higher learning and maybe a few major highway projects. And then these other, if you had the political savvy to talk to the chairman and work your legislation in, and that would be somewhere between $275 and $325 million a year. You were just popping it on the state's credit card. We hadn't done that, and we won't do it again this year. Is there
a place for that still?
Who knows? I'm not against it when it makes sense, but
which I guess money's not as cheap as it has been in the past.
It's not as cheap as it has been, so that plays into it as well.
Okay.
But cash is still king, even in a governmental budgeting situation.
Visiting with the Speaker of the House, Jason White. We will talk about some of the differences, but I want to go back when we come back to the role that the governor plays in this. One of the criticisms that you may have heard is the governor keeps saying eliminate the income tax. What is his plan to do that? Well, is it the job of the governor to have a plan, or is he fully within his rights to say, this is what I want, legislature, you get it done? We'll talk about that when we come back. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important.
Huge news. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Thanks for being with us on this Wednesday morning. However you are getting your day started. Maybe you're lucky and you got the day off and you're just going to get to hang out in the sunshine today. Maybe it's another day at the office, kids on the way to school. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being invested and interested in this conversation about tax reform in the state of Mississippi. I think we all, Senate, House, Democrats, Republicans, governor's office, I think we can all agree that this is not the sexiest conversation.
It's not.
It is not the most fun conversation, but it is a real conversation that deals with your pocketbook, your bank account, your money. And people certainly engage when we are talking about your money, their money, and rightfully so. So I said I wanted to come back to the governor's role in all of this. Tate Reeves has been abundantly clear that he wants the complete elimination of the income tax in the state of Mississippi. This question may be a little unfair, and you may not. You're probably just going to avoid it with your fancy, legalese. Is this a bulletin board win for the governor to eliminate the income tax, or is this legitimately what the state of Mississippi needs?
It's probably both. If I was the governor and this was my number one priority, I would be pushing for it in every way, shape, and form, and would certainly, I heard some folks say one time here 6 months ago something about, well, the governor really didn't have anything to do with all these economic wins we're enjoying, these things. But I'm like, well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. All I know is he's the governor. He's been lieutenant governor for 8 years. He's now in his 6 years governor, and a whole lot of positive things have happened on his watch. And so it's kind of like,
not debatable.
It's kind of like the quarterback in the football analogy. They get too much, of the blame when they lose, and they get probably too much of the credit when they win. And
that's fair.
It's probably somewhere in the middle. But there's no denying his track record on the economic front and the way economic development and the turnaround of our state has happened. And, maybe a lot of things lined up perfectly for that to happen. But I have to give him credit for being the guy, driving the ship. He's the guy there. And he has used his position as governor now to go all in on this is the way. Would he enjoy that feather in his cap at the next RGA event, in D.C. and when Donald Trump shakes his hand? Because, hey, Josh Harkins touched on this morning. We have lots of states, especially some southern, very successful states that don't have an income tax, like Texas and Tennessee and Florida. But no state other than Alaska, with their oil, has ever has built an economy on income tax and then done away with it. Lots have tried, and we've seen lots of failed experiments or not so pretty ones, but nobody's gotten there. This is a true path. And we're just small and nimble enough as a state that we can do it. And we've been punching above our weight, it feels like, for the last 3 or 4 years, whether you're talking about education gains, economic gains, and the huge economic wins we've had the last couple of years. At some point, you gotta acknowledge, hey, this thing might have turned around. We may be in some uncharted waters as far as a state.
So
for us.
So if this is the number one priority, and clearly it is for the governor, does the governor have a plan? Should the governor have a plan? Or is it the job of the governor to say, this is the number one thing on my agenda, go get it done, to the legislature?
I think that's a delicate balance because he just doesn't have a lot of power based on our Constitution. When we set it up, it's not as that office, that executive branch, is not as powerful as some other governorships. But
let me interrupt just for a second, because there are people who have heard this but don't understand exactly when you hear the lieutenant governor in the state of Mississippi is the most powerful position in Mississippi state government. You may agree or disagree with that. Maybe you think Speaker of the House is the most powerful position in state government.
I don't. Lots of people have different opinions on that. But Lieutenant Governor probably should be the most powerful. But
there are a lot of people that hear that and they're like, oh, but it's the governor, and they don't necessarily.
That's not.
So to your point, the Constitution in Mississippi is set up in a way where the governor himself, regardless of who that governor is, whether it's Tate Reeves or Phil Bryant or Haley Barbour before him, some have figured out a way to use that governor position in a more powerful way than others, but there's not that much power that resides with the sitting governor.
That's correct. The power of policy, the power of the purse strings. the appropriators. All of that stuff is vested in our legislature, and it's the way it was set up. And for better or worse, nobody's come up with a better. It's modeled closely after our federal government, but even there, our president has certain powers and things he can do that our governor cannot
executive
do.
Powers don't exist.
They really don't exist.
At least not in the
here.
same way.
No, he can appoint agency heads. Even those still have to go through a confirmation process in our state senate. So it's even that. But I'll say he plays the game as well as anybody. We thought Haley Barber played it well. Tate plays it well. And so I'll give him his due there. I've enjoyed working with him on this tax cut. Hey, let's talk about. Can I just talk about real quick?
This is the part where he tries to redirect the interview.
No, we've talked a lot, and y'all talked a lot about the Senate plan that came out yesterday.
Right.
And I am fired up about the fact that they have agreed to jump in the pool with us on total tax elimination of the personal income tax. I'm glad. That is a huge positive step. We're right on the cusp of really doing something great. But I noticed in their press conference when they revealed the bill on Monday, they spent most of the time talking about what their bill doesn't do. They talked about it doesn't raise the sales tax. It doesn't have mobile sports in it. It doesn't do this and it doesn't do that. It doesn't fool with the lottery money. Let's look at the features of what the bill does and what our bill does and talk about, if we're going to mesh those things, what it looks like. They want a guardrail path. We're not against triggers. But if we're going to have triggers, we could be a little more aggressive and maybe shorten that time frame down. And if we're performing, we hit it and we peel it back. Our plan is still an 11-year plan without a trigger. Now, to get there, we raise a cent of sales tax. And that seems to be a non-starter for the Senate, at least as they have. Well, and Senator Harkins said this
morning that he thinks any raise of the sales tax is a very tall hill to climb for his members.
My members aren't crazy about it. But if you truly believe in elimination of the personal income tax and moving us to a consumption-based economy, if you were setting up Mississippi's structure from scratch today, and your choice was 8 cents sales tax, which is 1.5 cents to 2 cents lower than any of our surrounding states, or let's be at 7 cents and have an income tax, which would you choose? Which would anybody choose? You would choose the 8 cents all day long and be a consumption and let Richard Cross decide how he is taxed on the things he purchases. That is why that feature of the House plan is there. Now, it also does some other things. It answers some infrastructure questions for our municipalities. We have been funding them in the form of special projects through our capital expense fund for the last several years with all of this surplus that we've had. So not their day-to-day operations, but big infrastructure projects in municipalities and counties. Those have been included in legislation. Raising that 1 cent of sales tax and they get a part of that new money would move them back to where they're doing their own thing in their budget and they can plan accordingly. The part that the state would keep that's new of that 1 cent is enough to soften this blow and kind of land the plane softly on doing away with the personal income tax, because there's no denying it's $2.2 billion.
A third of the revenue of the state.
It's almost a third of what we collect as a state from taxpayers. Yeah. And so, there is this notion we want to be careful and methodical and conservative and do it right. But to jump up down on the table and say, I'm doing this, but we're not raising any sales tax. I question how serious you are about your efforts to do away with the personal income tax. Because if you're going to be a consumption-based economy, you got to have that conversation. Like, you can't just do it because the math might work or it might be tricky. You got to do it because you believe that's the place we should go as a government, because of a core political philosophy that less government is better. The smaller amount of money I take out of your pocket, the better you're going to be. You know how to spend it better. You're going to invest it. You're going to build a home, all these things you're going to do.
In your mind, do the triggers adequately address the unknown of what the federal government is going to do in terms of perhaps cutting?
They could.
Money related to Medicare, Medicaid, money related to the Department of Education, et cetera.
Triggers could address any potential, catastrophe or, a huge turn in the economy or another pandemic, things that nobody can foresee. That could be part of the equation. And we have said publicly, we're fine with a trigger. Let's be sure we get the trigger exactly right.
So the wording of the triggers and the formula related to the triggers matters.
It's extremely important. And we're digging into their trigger now, and that's kind of where the conversations will center probably over the next 36 hours.
And what it was 85% triggers 85% of revenue triggers a 200 basis points decrease. Flat takes it to 0.25%, and 15% above takes it to 1.3 or to 3%.
Something like that.
It is complicated.
It's complicated.
But the whole conversation's complicated.
It is.
Let's continue that on the other side of this timeout. Visiting with Speaker of the House Jason White. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the SeabrookPaint.com Weather Center, I'm Bob Sullender. For all your paint and coating needs, go to SeabrookPaint.com. Today, a 30% chance of rain, mostly cloudy, high near 79. Tonight, a 30% chance of showers, partly cloudy, low around 42. Your Thursday, sunny skies, high near 61. Thursday evening, clear skies, low around 36. And your finally Friday, sunny conditions, high near 70 degrees. This weather is a service of our friends at Delta Auto on Highway 51 in Canton. If the engine is a diesel, meow, it's Delta. Delta Auto, Highway 51 in Canton.
$7 billion reinvested, thousands of new jobs, all happening on a main street near you. For over 40 years, the Mississippi Main Street Association has helped historic downtown districts across the state to revitalize. We spur economic development in the hearts of our communities, helping small businesses and driving quality of life projects that make our cities and towns better. Thank you to our state legislators, investors, and members who know that community revitalization happens on Main Street. Learn more at msmainstreet.com. That's msmainstreet.com.
Hey Mississippi, Taylor with the Skills Foundation here. I've traveled all over the state meeting high school seniors eager to start their careers, and I'm pleased to tell them that Mississippi is on a roll. Our state is attracting investments like never before in industries like manufacturing, construction, energy, and IT. Right now, there's serious demand for skilled workers, meaning companies are offering higher wages than ever. And that's why we created Skills That Pay. It's all about getting more Mississippians into great careers, jobs with excellent pay and long-term benefits. And here's the best part. We're also giving out signing bonuses to help cover the cost of training essentials. With the right training, you can get Skills That Pay and start out making over $50,000 a year. Many programs can be completed in less than a year. That means that students can make money faster and avoid debt. Get Skills That Pay and take your next step towards a great career. Visit skillsthatpay.ms to learn more. Paid for by the Skills Foundation of Mississippi.
Maloney Overhead Door is new to the greater Jackson area, but we've been serving North Mississippi families and businesses for over 3 generations. We're your local experts for all your garage door needs, residential and commercial garage door service, installation, repair, and emergency services, plus stock equipment sales and service, gate operator repair and replacement, and more. Experience the difference with Maloney Overhead Door of Greater Jackson. Call us today for a free quote. 601-612-0850. Maloney Overhead Door. Quality service for 3 generations.
Looking for land for recreation, hunting, fishing, or your dream property? Call me, Robert Cox, with Open Season Property, 601-988-8905. That's Robert Cox, 601-988-8905. 601-988-8905.
The best made-to-order lunch is right around the corner at 4th and Gold Sports Cafe. Eat in or carry out, DoorDash or Grubhub. Call 769-208-8283. That's 769-208-8283. Once again, 769-208-8283.
I'm Kelly Bennett, and you're listening to SuperTalk Mississippi News. A 21-year-old Biloxi woman will spend the rest of her life in prison after pleading guilty to murdering her best friend in 2022. Angel Lexi Mae Pierce pled guilty to first-degree murder and armed robbery in connection with the fatal shooting of Cody Smith in July of 2022. She was sentenced to life consecutive to 30 years in prison. Smith's body was found in a wooded area of Pass Christian in April of 2023, nearly a year after he'd last been seen. The investigation led authorities to Pierce, then 19 years old, and Jerry Cornelius Parkman, then 24 years old, as those responsible for his slaying. The co-defendant in the case, Jerry Parkman, is set to go to trial in late April.
Are you a business owner looking for help with HR benefits and payroll? MWG Employer Services offers a wide range of services and can create a custom plan that fits your needs and budget.
I was so overwhelmed with HR stuff. MWG Employer Services took all the stress out of it and even set up my payroll. I couldn't be happier.
MWG Employer Services is here to help you succeed. Call us today at 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerServices.com.
$7 billion reinvested, thousands of new jobs, all happening on a main street near you. For over 40 years, the Mississippi Main Street Association has helped historic downtown districts across the state to revitalize. We spur economic development in the hearts of our communities, helping small businesses and driving quality of life projects that make our cities and towns better. Thank you to our state legislators, investors, and members who know that community revitalization happens on Main Street. Learn more at msmainstreet.com. That's msmainstreet.com.
You know that nowadays, most people go online to look at a business before they spend their money. Do you have an old, outdated website or just a Facebook page and still not bringing in customers? Targeted digital advertising from STMM Digital's highly trained and trusted staff is the answer. We're ready to work with you to help your business capitalize on the power of digital marketing. Call 601-991-2305 or go to stmmdigital.com to get started today.
Wake up, get up, and start your day right with Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. A little after 8:30, about a little less than half an hour left with you on this Wednesday morning. I want to say thank you to all my guests this morning. I appreciate Senator Harkins and Senator Sparks coming in on the early shift. Glad the third shift could come in with the Speaker of the House, Jason White. I couldn't say it with a straight face. I tried. No, I do appreciate your willingness always to come on and to talk about this stuff and share your perspective on it. There is, I think, a piece of the Senate bill that the House bill addresses as well, but they do so in different ways. That's really important and is also really passionate for a lot of people, and that's the PERS conversation. One of the things that Senator Sparks on the floor during their debate yesterday was adamant about kind of clearing up some misnomers about Tier 5 was how that was going to affect people that are currently in the retirement system. And he went to great lengths to point out it's not changing anything if you are already in the system. And it doesn't change anything for anybody that is in the system before March 1st, assuming this legislation is passed. But it would change going forward. Where are you on Tier 5, this hybrid defined benefit, defined contribution plan, and maybe the bigger conversation about PERS? And last thing I would say, I know you'll push back on this. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, they're diverting $100 million to PERS. That doesn't even make a dent. That doesn't even begin to cover the year-over-year increases. That's just window dressing. You and some of your colleagues have said, no, it's not window dressing, it's real.
It is.
I know
real.
There's a lot there.
It is real. And the $110 million last year was real. And that kind of – you got to back up a little bit to remember kind of how we got here on PERS. Now, in a way, it's unfortunate that it has bled into the tax reform debate. But – we're willing to have that conversation. We were willing to have it last year.
But the House bill had PERS in it from the get-go, right?
It did. It did because we believe no matter...
And the Senate bill did not initially? Because they
did not.
There was a package of PERS bills that was separate.
They had a package of PERS bills that were separate. And nobody's denying that things have to change at PERS, that we can't, whether anybody wants to hear this or not, it's the truth. We cannot afford what we have out and on the table. You can't keep up with 3% compounded interest annually. the math won't work. It just doesn't work.
I mean, it's great if it's your savings account or your portfolio.
Oh, it's outstanding. Listen, I sleep with a PERS retiree every night, Richard. My wife. My parents are PERS retirees. I get it.
My mom is. It is
a huge economic driving force and a factor in our state. Just the retirees' purchasing power, if nothing else. So nobody is taking it lightly. And then when you mix in the political aspect of it, the fact that these people are plugged in politically, I think Sid Salter has often called it the third rail of politics. Like you got all of these public employees that are retired, and they are very plugged in to the political scene because of this issue.
And in a lot of different ways, right? I mean, you have the PERS board and the power that they have, but then you have this group of 20,000 or correct. So, and it's Facebook and it's social media and it's local public events, and it's very much getting the word out.
It is. And these are the people that were your teacher and my teacher and your school superintendent and your chancery clerk. These are coach. People that are known in your community and respected, as they should be. But, because of the jobs they did and the lives they lived in their communities, they were community leaders in so many instances. So elected officials, they listen when those people call them. And the first thing you tell them is, you better not mess with my PERS. So to Senator Sparks' point, I hadn't met a person at the Capitol that wants to undo benefits or change them for retirees or folks that are already in the system. The conversation centers around, let's be sure that is stable moving forward and we can pay our bills at PERS, what the people signed up for and what we guarantee. And he's exactly right. When they increased the benefits in the late 90s, we didn't adjust accordingly. We were making so much money was coming in off of gaming. We were one of the only states that had it. I think they thought, how can we ever spend all this money? And that was way before my time. I won't speak for them, but just like the 87 road plan, it was great at the time. But now, the chickens are coming home to roost, and we got to deal with them. Yeah. So nobody in the House is fundamentally against a new Tier 5. There have been new tiers added, at several different points in our history. We can add a Tier 5. Now, exactly what that looks like, I think, is still open for some debate. The PERS board, they didn't endorse this plan. They endorsed a concept of a new Tier 5. So we got to be careful about saying they endorsed the plan. They voted 8-1, as Senator Sparks talked about this morning, for something new, because even they realize something's got to change. What you hear people say is, if you do a Tier 5, people are not going to take these government jobs if they don't have this Cadillac retirement that we currently have. That's one of the things that lures them into state employment. Is that like a
canary in the coal mine argument, though?
I don't know.
And are you not better off adjusting salaries than you are?
Young people now want to know how much is their paycheck. They should be thinking about this great retirement.
I kind of wish I had,
but they really don't. So I think it's more about, that's why you see University Medical Center having a tough time hiring nurses as compared to their sister hospitals around them, because they have to tell them, hey, on the front end, this amount comes out of your check. And for a young nurse, maybe that's not the most important thing to them right then. Now, if they talk to mom and dad, they're going to say, that's the deal you need to be doing.
Yeah, you're signing up for 9% going into retirement, period, but that turns into 25%.
That's right. It's the best
astronomical.
Deal going. It's astronomical. So,
but it's also unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. So we're not against the Tier 5. We got to talk exactly about what that might look like. And the House was never just going to carte blanche take what the Senate sent on that issue. It's such a hot issue. It's very technical, and lots of folks will be around the table when we figure out what that looks like. We can do that this session, but only if it includes a dedicated stream of revenue for PERS, which we believe is as important or as maybe more important part of the equation. No, $100 million this year won't do it, but $100 million a year in perpetuity, along with some of these changes, will make a really good dent in the deficit that we have. And Senator Sparks made a good point this morning. We're not going broke tomorrow. We're not going broke 5 years from now.
Well, and one of the things that I brought up
is the 20 years.
As we've talked about this, while yes, it is a $26.5 billion issue, or whatever the number is, $26 billion issue.
That's about right.
It's not a $26 billion issue this year. It's a smaller percentage of that number, and it's a percentage of that number. Now, you don't want the big number to continue to grow.
Correct. And that's why reforms, yes, should be on the table. And it's unfortunate that they bled into this tax reform debate, but we'll have them. We're just saying with reforms, there's also an obligation to put money into the system to level it up. And if we're going to touch all these other pieces of government and how we fund it and how we spend our money, we should deal with this now, not next year, not as we talk about it in the future. So they can run around and say we're not raising sales tax. But what are they going to do when it gets time, when these cuts start happening, we're thinking about a budget, and they say, oh, yeah, well, PERS needs that influx. PERS needs that influx.
On the 8-1 PERS board vote, you're saying they didn't endorse this specific – they endorsed
Correct.
a hybrid plan going forward, but you're saying it's not this specific
But again,
hybrid plan.
We hadn't necessarily taken all our direction from the PERS board the last few years, because if you remember, they wanted a 10-cent increase over an amount of time. They wanted to go to 25 on the employer side of the contribution, or to 27 from 17 all the way. So we put a stop to that. The legislature will now be involved in employer increases, which think taxpayer. When you hear employer increases, that means taxpayer increases to that fund. We're going to fund them. We just need to be methodical about all aspects of how we reform it, and not just get into, hey, we got to have a tier 5. We need money to go there as well. And the House plan for tax reform addresses that issue by freeing up the lottery proceeds to dedicate $100 million a year specifically to that deficit till it reaches 80% funding.
Was mobile sports betting in the House plan?
No, it was kind of like Senate talks about their PERS bills were separate. The mobile sports bill was separate, but it is alive and well. And if it hit the Senate floor today, it would pass with flying colors. And you can tell that to whoever you want to that comes on here. I don't believe for a minute it wouldn't pass with probably 40 votes.
As it is written?
As it is written. But we could fix exactly how we direct the proceeds. We directed them to the Emergency Road and Bridge Fund at MDOT. We're perfectly open to where those proceeds are going. But there's no denying illegal mobile sports betting is going on in our state. It will continue to go on as long as we just pretend like it's not happening. It is happening.
Why is this such a pro-House issue, or maybe it's a leadership issue?
It's a pro-House member issue, and it is a pro-Senate membership issue. You have to talk to leadership of both the gaming committee and the leadership of the state Senate on that issue, and ask them specifically.
There are a lot of people that say special interest is more involved in the mobile sports betting piece than they should be.
You should ask them next time they're on here. What's the deal?
I did. I didn't get a lot of an answer.
That would be part of, if we're not raising other taxes, that's a place we could find about $50 to $80 million of revenue to help shore up some of these things that we're talking about.
I'm sure there is more, but we've run out of time. And I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for the conversation. Always
Absolutely.
Good.
Speaker of the House, Jason White, joining us. Mornings with Richard Cross. We will somehow try to put a bow on this morning when we come back and send you on your way into a wonderful Wednesday. Back after this.
Strange what desire make foolish people do. I never dreamed that I'd meet somebody like you.
From the Venom.
You're waking up to what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross. Right now on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Thanks for being with us this morning. I think we have covered a lot of ground.
No, definitely.
I said this a second ago. I'll say it again. I genuinely appreciate in the 7 o'clock hour, Senator Josh Harkins and Senator Daniel Sparks coming in, talking about the amended Senate bill, which was passed yesterday. And I also appreciate Speaker of the House Jason White coming in and talking about that. And I wish I could. If you were only listening and you weren't watching on SuperTalk TV, that's fine. We're thrilled to have you as part of the radio audience, the podcast audience, or if you're streaming online, just listening to the audio while you're doing other stuff at work. Thank you times a million. But I wish you could have seen, if you weren't watching, the look on Speaker White's face when we first talked about what the Senate did yesterday. There was a genuine look of relief. Now, does he believe for a second that they're done? Absolutely not. But the passage of that amended tax reform bill in the Senate yesterday, even though there are disagreements on all of the details between here and there, meant that this conversation didn't end. And whether you believe it or not, I'm here to tell you that more work than you can imagine has gone into this on the House side and on the Senate side. And if you're a proponent of the House bill as it exists or as it is amended, you say, okay, this is the way that we should be going. And the Senate's just being a stick in the mud and they're all curmudgeon-y and all they do is say no. I get that. And if you are a proponent of the Senate bill for tax reform, you say, man, those wild children on the other end of the hall with all of their tax bill and everything rolled into it, this is a conservative plan. This is a sustainable plan. It's a responsible plan. Regardless of where you fall, in which side you support. And by the way, I think I've said this. I think I've made this clear. And you may not care where I stand individually on it. But I'll tell you where I stand on it. I think there's good in both bills. Like, there's some things that I like in the House bill that I would like to see in final passage. And there's some things that I like in the Senate bill that I would like to see in final passage. And hopefully, as these two sides come together, and it's going to be conversations that are led by Senator Harkins and Representative Lamar, and obviously the Lieutenant Governor is going to play a significant role, and the Speaker of the House is going to play a significant role. But both of those leaders have appointed people to kind of do the dirty work of getting something that they believe that they can get passed in their chamber. And I know that's a lot of words. But it was a lot of words to tell you that whichever bill you support, or if you support a meeting in the middle, don't let yourself get caught up in thinking that, oh, those guys in Jackson, they don't care. They're all just in it for themselves. It really is impossible to quantify the amount of work that has gone into getting to this point. And I actually think the legislature should be applauded for that.
Well, you challenged them early, yesterday?
Monday? There's a little bit more work that had gone in before that. It's not just in the last 48 hours.
No, it isn't, but you make a great point. It takes so much behind the scenes to get to the point where you can negotiate. And that's where you are. You're at a point where you can find some common ground.
Yeah. I want to address this message from Thomas. And I know I give Thomas a hard time sometimes about some of his statements. He said if the Senate bill passed, we'd never actually see income tax elimination due to all of their triggers. Thomas, that says to me that you don't believe in the continued economic growth for the state of Mississippi. Because if the state continues to grow economically, then those triggers will go into place. And I think that's what we all ought to be cheering for. Like, you want to be a cheerleader for something? That's what you're cheerleading for. Continued economic growth for the state of Mississippi.
100%.
We better be making more money because, doggone it, everything else is more expensive. It's no different than to keep up with the cost of groceries and the cost of houses and the cost of camp for your kids in the summer, you got to make more money. You're cheering for your own economic progress. The state of Mississippi is not any different. Our bills as a state are not getting cheaper. How do we combat that? We make smart financial decisions, and we continue to grow economically. That ought to be what we're cheering for more than anything, because it's the key to our success as a state going forward. Whew. Thanks for being with us. I hope you have a spectacular Wednesday. For Lance, I'm Richard. Thanks to my guest this morning. This is Mornings with Richard Cross. on SuperTalk Mississippi.
SuperTalk Mississippi media production.